For me, it's individuals who try to outdo others and those who cannot follow through with plans. Story 1. There are one-uppers as well. I have no time for the whole alpha male attitude either. Anyone who comes in with the "I'm the big shot" mentality is kept at arm's length or ignored entirely. Also, anyone who is a liability on a night out is not welcome. If they become loud or aggressive after drinking, I won't go out with them again. I don't need that drama in my life, and neither do most of my friends. A little bit of flakiness doesn't bother me, but there is a difference between someone who is disorganized and has difficulty with schedules versus someone who genuinely doesn't care. Story 2. Arrogance and superiority complex personalities are generally the individuals I despise. Those who demean others and view them as lesser beings while elevating themselves are particularly contemptible. Entitlement is another trait I genuinely dislike. It is especially frustrating when privileged individuals complain about having it so difficult while others around them are struggling to survive. Story 3. Perpetual victims always complaining, nothing is ever good enough, feeling like the world is against them, always broke. These individuals drain my energy. Story 4. People who feel the need to drink or use drugs. I have a friend and his group of friends are like that. Alcohol, cocaine, prescription medications. Let me just enjoy my experience. Story 5. Monsters. No matter the conversation, it always gets twisted to be about themselves or their lives. They excel at everything, possess the best of everything, show no sympathy or care for anyone else, and their smallest inconveniences are treated as if they were the end of the world. Story 6. Overly friendly individuals who lack assertiveness, overly negative individuals, those who see themselves as victims, and unrealistic individuals. Story 7. People who self-diagnose mental illness and brag about it often miss the point. There is no need to announce one's mental health status. It should not be a general topic of conversation. Story 8. A friend of mine would brag about everything, how much he was making, how much he could bench press, and his girlfriend. I stopped being friends with him after I recently broke up and he got a new girlfriend. While we were playing games, he randomly mentioned, "You are the only one here without a girlfriend now." Story 9. Anyone who self-describes as an alpha is, quite frankly, not an actual alpha. No true alpha would need to proclaim such to be recognized. If you don't understand that, you're probably not the type of person I would relate to. This isn't to say that they are bad people. I just prefer to avoid pointless competitions, and I follow no one. If you think it's your way or the highway, I will gladly get in my car and take that highway as soon as possible. Story 10. People who always want to be the center of attention. People who only like to talk about their lives and have no interest in yours or anyone else's. Story 11. All my life, I have been a magnet for insecure individuals, perhaps because they could sense that I was the only one who would not make fun of them like others did. The reality is that you tread lightly around their feelings, yet they often end up trampling all over yours. Story 12. As of today, it describes someone with poor hygiene, a lack of understanding of personal space, and the misconception that Mexico is in Europe. Story 13. If I don't enjoy being friends with someone, they will not remain my friend. Life is too short to spend time with people I don't like. This is a lesson I had to learn the hard way. I used to tolerate too much. Now I am more selective. Story 14. People who have advanced in their careers or married well often believe they are superior to those who are still living life the way they used to. Story 15. Cocky and arrogant people tend to view themselves as superior. They can be quite annoying. It is often perceived as even more challenging when exhibited by women, as there is a belief that others are interested in them. Story 16. One-uppers really get on my nerves. They also seem to be more common than I initially thought. Story 17. People who consistently undermine others or display passive-aggressive behavior towards your relationships to elevate their own self-esteem. Story 18. You know when you're out with friends and order a pizza, there's always one person who calculates exactly how many slices everyone can have, and which slice each person should take to ensure no one ends up with fewer slices of pepperoni than anyone else? Man, just be quiet and get another pizza. Story 19. Some individuals are self-serving and make it clear that their friendship is based on personal gain. Remember that some people only spend time with you to boost their own ego. Story 20. Stick to plans for sure. I intentionally ended a friendship with someone I used to work with many years ago. We didn't have any mutual friends. While they were always enthusiastic about hanging out, at least 90% of the scheduled plans never happened, usually canceled on the same day for reasons like, I am behind on laundry. It got to the point that I started planning for them to bail. I began to think they didn't want to hang out, so I stopped making any effort. Then they texted me how they missed hanging out, and we scheduled a meetup at a bar for a drink. It was the only thing I agreed to, not wanting to commit to anything larger. 2 hours before we met, they canceled again. When they texted again, I was upfront and honest. It became clear how selfish they were. There was no acknowledgement of the last-minute cancellations. Then it turned into all my fault because I wasn't flexible. I didn't have a partner. To them, I lived the perfect life and wouldn't understand. That was it for me. To be fair, their partner and I never got along. I kind of wonder if that was a factor. But that's not my problem. Story 21. People who only talk about themselves, as if they are the only ones with interesting lives, often talk over me. At that point, I just listened to their continuous monologue without trying to engage. I've had friends who knew very little about me because they didn't care. Story 22. People who believe that cruelty is a duty of theirs act as if humans are capable of providing that on their own. Story 23. Entrepreneurs. Anyone who is obsessed with money or career. Money exists to pay for bills and a little fun. I refuse to put it on a pedestal. Story 24. We hired an intern who constantly mentioned his family's wealth and their expensive possessions. It was quite annoying, and nobody in the office liked him. I couldn't relate to him at all as I grew up in poverty. I understand that his upbringing may have influenced his behavior, but I found it difficult to engage in conversation with him. Story 25. Uppers and downers. Some people feel the need to one-up or one-down others. I just lost $700 on that Knicks game. Yeah, I know the feeling. I lost $800. Actually, I lost $600. My bookmaker was wrong. Yeah, I just talked to my bookmaker. I only lost $700 too. Story 26. People whose only life problems are self-inflicted and bleed into yours. No, I don't want to know if you got back with your obviously toxic boyfriend, and I don't appreciate you bringing him to my house to ruin my mood. Yes, I'm sick of him being angry at me for your choice to sleep over at my house because he cheated for the 90th time. Story 27. Chronically late individuals. If you are consistently late, you will struggle in many areas of life, and I will not waste my time waiting for you. Story 28. People who only talk at you and not with you often focus solely on themselves and their interests. They rarely ask you questions, and when they do, they aren't really listening because they are preoccupied with formulating their own responses. It can be frustrating to engage with such individuals. Story 29. Drama queens, gossips, people without perspective, individuals with a victim complex, complainers, bigots, and those who only want to talk about themselves. Story 30. Big personalities make me tend to shrink around the more boisterous and loud types, those who are the life of the party. It's not that I find them unkind. Rather, I find it harder to be my natural self, possibly due to a mismatch of energy. Story 31. People who say one thing and then do another or promise one thing and fail to follow through are frustrating. Those who struggle with texting should remember that it is the simplest way to communicate and takes only seconds out of your busy day. Story 32. People over 30 who still have their parents constantly bailing them out with money never suffer or learn and just get worse. They are spoiled and unproductive. Story 33. Many of the comments I have seen reflect a common theme of perpetual victimhood. I know people who have been divorced for 10 years and still see themselves as victims, saying things like, "Because of my ex." I also know individuals in their 40s who are still upset about things their parents did while raising them. It's important to seek counseling and focus on living your life. Story 34. Selfish people, scratch that. Most people in general, wait, scratch that, all people in general. However, I can make friends with dogs. Story 35. Extreme PC authoritarians, It is hard to have a conversation when even the most benign sentences are broken down, and personal opinions are not valued unless they align with their firm views. One cannot even maintain a neutral stance. Story 36. Aside from the obvious reasons that can make a person unlikable, I find that individuals with attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, who are not on medication can be very kind. However, the constant flow of information and questions can be overwhelming. Perhaps it's because I have schizotypal personality disorder, STPD myself. My mind struggles to manage so many things along with everything else I'm dealing with. I want to emphasize that I don't harbor any negativity towards people with ADHD. I believe you can be wonderful individuals. Story 37. Lifelong victims. People who project a lack of agency over their own lives often believe that bad things happen to them without taking responsibility for their actions. This mindset is similar to that of entitled individuals who expect the world to change to meet their needs instead of adapting to reality. I have no problem supporting a friend through difficult times, but it is frustrating to witness those whose denial of reality creates a cycle of persistent misfortune in their lives. Story 38. People who focus more on their appearance and on how others perceive them than on enjoying themselves and having a good time may be missing the point. If you find yourself needing to tell people repeatedly that you are a fun person, perhaps that is not the truth. Story 39. Retired Navy personnel. Not all, but a significant number are insufferable individuals who cannot accept that they are no longer wearing a uniform. I am a veteran and proudly served, but some of these individuals do not act accordingly. Story 40. People with substance abuse issues and those overly focused on materialism can be challenging. If more than 20% of your personality revolves around alcohol use or desire for flashy possessions, I find it difficult to engage with you beyond superficial interactions. While I strive to be kind to everyone, I prefer not to include individuals who prioritize these traits in my social circle. Story 41. People who take my ideas as their own mean that I share something with them, and they then communicate the same idea to others without giving me credit. Essentially, they lack integrity. Story 42. I am unsure what to call these individuals. Hypocrites? For example, someone in the family is discussing their job at a fast food restaurant on Mother's Day, mentioning how it was excessively busy. A woman interjects, claiming that people are lazy and should be at home cooking instead of dining out and inconveniencing fast food workers. Ironically, this same woman is later at another person's house, not contributing or cooking, while the men and other mothers handle all the preparation and cooking, and she remains seated on the couch, making her comments. Story 43. People who are easily offended and those who constantly complain about others. Story 44. I had a habit of being friends with people who were mean to me while I tried to get them to like me. Now I am 30 and have standards. Story 45. People who lie about trivial matters. It's acceptable to say no, but please don't lie to my face, fail to do what I asked, and then avoid me for 2 months. Story 46. People who do not Story 47. People who always complain or express hate toward the other gender, such as women who hate men and men who hate women, seem childish to me. Story 48. Overly political individuals. We understand that the world is facing challenges and that many people have differing views. Let's enjoy these delicious nachos. Story 49. People who believe in star signs. People who make politics play a significant role in their lives. People with negative personalities. Short people, they intimidate me. Story 50. Know-it-all individuals. Arrogant people. Individuals who constantly complain. Users. People who body shame others. Racists, sexists, homophobes, and similar individuals. Liars, thieves, and cheaters. Obnoxiously loud individuals. Heavy drinkers. Individuals using illegal drugs. Lazy individuals. People who act indifferent. Selfish individuals. Those who cannot adhere to plans. Traitors. Above all, I cannot stand individuals lacking common sense. Story 51. Liberals and anyone who believes there are more than 2 genders, as well as certain religions, are viewed by me as oppressive and not having a place in my country. I prefer not to name them to avoid potential consequences. Story 52. Negative people, overly judgmental individuals, those who always need to be right, individuals who frequently complain, and chronic whiners. Story 53. I will get downvoted, but to each their own. I do not want to be friends with LGBTQ plus people. I can be friendly to them, but that's it, especially since they try to flirt with me every time and get mad because I'm not interested. My last LGBTQ plus friend and I had fun. He showed me his city and cool places. We had a great time having a drink at night, and I thought we would stay friends. One night, he lost it and tried to push me to have sex with him, saying, "Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. We are friends now, and I would love you to do that." I was taken aback. That was the last LGBTQ plus friend I had. A similar situation happened with another guy who became upset because his female best friend wanted to be with me. He wanted me to have sex with him and said it was impossible. This 36-year-old man started to act out and cry like a child. This happened the same summer I met the first person I talked about. Story 54. I unfortunately have to be around some of them, but people who thrive on and demand attention. My biggest reason for trying to avoid them is that I know myself. I can and probably will call them out quite bluntly. I normally try to ignore them, but when they push me past my limit, I will speak my mind. Calmly, but likely without mercy when it comes to words. My biggest reason for genuinely disliking them is how some of them have no limits when it comes to tactics for grabbing attention. From making conversations all about themselves, to playing the woe is me card, all the way to smashing tables and throwing tantrums just to be noticed. All the while, they complain and put others down. I can't stand those sorts. Story 55. Overly happy, loud, wealthy individuals who primarily discuss investing, traveling, and gourmet food. I don't believe they are bad people, but I prefer not to be around them. Story 56. Anyone who constantly talks about being dominant, loud individuals, those who enjoy hearing themselves speak, and people who use profanity in every sentence are noticeable. I understand well-placed curse words, but overuse simply conveys, I'm trying too hard to be impressive. Story 57. 1. Flakes. Those who talk on the phone for hours. I just stop answering their calls. Self-absorbed. If I have a headache, they assume I have a brain tumor, always trying to one-up me. Only call when they need something. Story 58. Narcissists are a unique breed. When you encounter them, it can be quite a shocking experience. Story 59. Individuals who have expensive tastes but limited financial means. A goal without a plan is merely wishful thinking. Many of these individuals just talk a big game. Story 60. People who view everything through the lens of the manufactured pseudo-moral culture war they subscribe to. Story 61. Some people are very well educated in certain subjects and they like others to know it. However, I dislike it when they talk to me as if I'm uninformed. Story 62. People who talk for hours about subjects I don't care about are frustrating. For example, I work a long day and attend a dinner where people discuss politics. At that moment, I don't care. Additionally, people who know I am not a believer in God but still talk to me about religion are also annoying. Story 63. People who make one aspect of their personality their entire identity concern me. I appreciate a variety of interests, but I do not define myself by just one of them. Story 64. Without a doubt, some people talk over you or interrupt you during a serious conversation, or when you are venting about something trivial. I have a friend who always does this. She starts talking to her dog in a baby voice and asks how their day is when I'm in the middle of sharing something difficult or sad. It makes me instantly not want to share anything with her ever again. Story 65. People who expect you to pay for things or give them money instead of asking, along with those who are smokers, heavy drinkers, or drug users. Story 66. People who can only talk about themselves often dominate conversations. Whenever a topic is introduced, they share their personal experiences, which can stifle the discussion and close off the subject. Story 67. People who exhibit smugness tend to believe they are superior to others and often go out of their way to belittle others while elevating themselves. Story 68. The people who always see themselves as victims and refuse to take any accountability are often self-destructive. Despite being perpetually broke, they always find money for vacations and shopping. I am currently dealing with a friend who has been single for the last 12 years but refuses to acknowledge that she is the common factor in her situation. I am the friend who is honest and straightforward with her. I told her she doesn't have real friends because they only validate her behavior. She hasn't spoken to me for a few days now, which is completely fine. She can be draining. It feels like there is a constant black cloud hovering over her, reminiscent of characters from old cartoons. Story 69. I have a lot of experience with that. Narcissistic individuals exhibit highly critical behavior, bullying, laziness, antagonism, and manipulation. They can seem nice but are often shamers at heart. These traits lead to harmful behaviors that can affect you in numerous ways. Don't be distracted by the positive qualities they may possess. They will drain you emotionally over time. After years of this, it will be difficult to distance yourself. You may find yourself feeling isolated and craving their attention. You don't want someone like that around you, let alone consider them a friend. The title of friend is questionable and may come with a heavy cost. These are people you should not trust. Share as little as possible with them, if anything at all. It's often hard to identify these individuals without prior experience and knowledge. Many of them present impressively beautiful facades and possess skills that might make them appear to be good friends. However, they will betray you for the smallest reasons, often over matters completely outside of your control, while still projecting blame onto you. To avoid being involved with toxic friends, it's best to recognize the early warning signs associated with these traits. It's not always straightforward. For example, if someone doesn't truly listen to you, that is antagonistic behavior. I used to think that people change and I am a forgiving person, but they often do not change, no matter how much you try. Forgiveness is a valuable quality when you are ready and at peace, but be cautious. The most dangerous individuals are narcissists. They can destroy you slowly, bit by bit. If you stay in the relationship long enough, they will succeed in undermining you. For them, it is a battle while you are actually in a friendship. They are not safe individuals. Many violent offenders exhibit narcissistic traits, but not all narcissists are violent. They simply do not contribute to your mental and emotional well-being. Dealing with narcissistic individuals requires compassion, as they may seem amenable when met with kindness. However, it is often not worth the effort. When they experience difficulty, you will likely be blamed in their eyes. They may recognize the truth, but often resort to guile and manipulation. Adapting yourself to such a high degree just to maintain peace with them can be exhausting and unproductive, though it might yield temporary results. Story 70. The anchors. I call them that because they try to anchor you down to the misery they feel. They are not your friend if they make you feel bad, depressed, guilty, or anything else for moving on with your life. They are just parasites that drain the happiness from you. Story 71. Loud individuals often call others stupid and view everyone judgmentally, making many assumptions about people they know nothing about. They act as if they know everything. There are those who always try to outdo others and overly competitive individuals who treat everything as a contest. Additionally, some people live in a constant state of anxiety, fueled by the news they consume and the perspectives they choose to adopt. Story 72. People who buy me a catcher's mitt on my birthday because they like to pitch. A few gifts that I received and appreciated were a ticket to a concert for their favorite band and another item I wasn't into. Story 73. I have a strong bias against two groups of people: those who are not white and those who are white. Everyone else is acceptable. Story 74. I understand that anxiety is a disorder that many people cannot control. I used to experience severe anxiety myself, but I am tired of being seen as a bad person because someone misinterpreted my intentions due to their personal worries. I once had a friend pass away, and I was absolutely distraught. I didn't speak much for a few days. One friend recognized that something was wrong and gave me space until I was ready to talk, while another friend assumed I was angry with her and began questioning me about why I was upset. This made me expend emotional energy reassuring her that she had done nothing wrong, which she barely believed, while I was still grieving. Frustrates me. Story 75. In a constant state of drama, or speaking negatively about everyone. If they are talking about everyone, there is a good chance they are talking about you as well. Story 76. People who need to drink to do anything are exhausting. I'm so over it. Can we just go to the water park without sneaking in drinks? Why does the park have to accommodate hidden alcohol? Can we please just have a regular hangout? Story 77. I don't like men who talk about women as if they are just sex objects or people to do drugs with or get drunk and take advantage of. Story 78. Pseudo-intellectual individuals can be quite influential, which can be dangerous. When explaining things, one such person I knew often shared half-hearted stories that seemed plausible but were ultimately misinformation. Story 79. People who use others as the butt of their jokes in an attempt to make a woman laugh are often narcissists. They engage in one-sided conversations, treating you as a sounding board while predominantly focusing on themselves. Expect frequent use of the pronouns I and me. Story 80. People who emotionally burden me often get distracted by their phones if I start sharing my problems. Story 81. Self-victimizing individuals and those who sabotage themselves often draw you into their difficulties. Some people exploit others for their own gain, ultimately causing harm to the other person. Compulsive liars and manipulative individuals can be particularly challenging. I had to distance myself from many people, including my best friend of nearly a decade. It was difficult but necessary. I cannot cater to others when I am trying to focus on my own life and responsibilities, nor can I walk on eggshells to avoid conflict. Story 82. One-uppers, negative people, and those full of pride are not the same as people who are proud of themselves and share that pride. Instead, they are the ones who always think they know better or consider themselves superior to everyone else. For example, my coworker, when I expressed that I was overwhelmed about something, laughed at me and told me I just needed to be more like them and relax. They insisted that I shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the fact that I needed to take my cat to the veterinarian while also needing to be home for fumigation to let the workers in. I couldn't leave the door unlocked because I don't live in the safest neighborhood. Story 83. Men who feel the need to prove their masculinity often come across as overbearing. I understand, as I work as a logger. However, I don't feel the need to boast about my physical strength, my ability to overpower others, or my drinking capacity. It seems like you are trying too hard, making it difficult for others to enjoy your company. Story 84. Insecure individuals disrupt the vibe whenever girls are involved because they perceive it as a competition, while teamwork truly makes the dream work. We are supposed to be a united team, but some act as if they belong in a comedy show. Generally, I encounter people who are untrustworthy, those who monopolize your time for their own interests. These include individuals struggling with substance abuse. This is not a judgment. I am simply not in a phase of my life where I am willing to deal with the consequences of such behavior. I prefer to avoid anyone who drains my energy or peace. Story 85. One way to address one-uppers in a group context, if you're sure they are not aware of their behavior and are being purposefully self-centered, is to relate them to terms like 11-rife or $3 bill. If talk of travel comes up, you might say, "Did you know name is just back from 11-rife? It's like Tenerife, but one better, obviously." Or they pay for things with $3 bills because, beyond that trait, I would say there is a variant that often seems to mock or fault someone due to an inferiority complex. This includes bigots or individuals with lazy prejudices that they cling to. Story 86. People who lack common sense, overly religious individuals, extremely selfish people, those who are excessively frugal, individuals who believe everything they see in the news, and those who pretend to be knowledgeable about a topic while having no real understanding of it. Story 87. Also, there are people who are not aware of time. There are those who are so indecisive that they waste time. If I have to skip a meal because I waited over 40 minutes for you, we shouldn't be friends. If I arrive late to an event because you took too long to meet, let's just plan to meet at the event next time. Story 88. Spot on, my friend. I'll add that anytime you need to compete just to get a word into a conversation because the self-proclaimed leader is dominating the discussion, I'm leaving immediately. Story 89. Overly positive individuals, men who believe that being masculine defines their personality, and people who are excessively extroverted. Story 90. Non-creative individuals in creative environments can be frustrating. I am not referring to the finance team, but to actual creatives. I have a colleague who follows every company directive without question, leaving no room for creativity, even though we both work in creative roles at an art school. I dislike that mentality. I also dislike dishonest individuals, especially those who do everything to avoid conflict, even if it means betraying someone else. Additionally, I dislike individuals who view friendships as one-sided, taking everything without giving anything in return. I am willing to be loyal to my friends, but if you only take advantage of that loyalty, you can forget it. There might be some anger in this message. Story 91. Cocky, arrogant, lacking self-control, creepy, predatory, dishonest, deceitful, and lacking integrity. The people in my circle must be trustworthy. Story 92. Narcissists. This video describes a man I was friends with since 1984, whom I met in junior high. I am no longer friends with him as of 2007. Everything this man says in this 30-second clip perfectly describes how my former friend was. I was shocked to hear him define his characteristics, and I could relate to them. Story 93. It's an interesting question. It suggests that we are assigned friends. However, there's some truth to that idea because the more unpleasant a person is, the better they often become at concealing it. This makes sense. When being yourself alienates you from others, you either work on improving yourself or learn to lie more effectively. Most people choose the latter. The type of person I have observed doing this frequently is the drama addict. Everything can be going well, and they will take it upon themselves to turn the situation into chaos and drama. When you call them out on it, they act as if you are at fault for not tolerating their outbursts and antics related to their traumatic experiences. Essentially, if you are not willing to allow them to recklessly damage your relationships and peace of mind, your life really, then you are seen as the problem. These individuals are everywhere, and I do not have the time for it. Story 94. People can be wonderful until they are in public or have had a drink or two, at which point they may become impulsive, angry, and unpredictable. While I'm not sure if there is a specific name for this behavior, I have encountered a few friends like this, and they are usually beautiful women. Story 95. People who are stagnant in life and those who make one aspect of their life their entire personality are related but not the same. Story 96. I have developed an aversion to people whom I catch lying. It's not just any kind of lie. It's the type of person who swears to your face that they are your best friend, and the moment you leave the room, they change their tone and prepare to speak negatively about you to their next best friend. Individuals who have a habit of disparaging others, exhibiting the same scripted fake smile in every interaction, are particularly off-putting. Those who champion various principles solely in words, but when challenged, resort to excuses and justifications for their behavior are equally frustrating. It's interesting how I quickly turn such individuals into enemies, but I assure you I don't do it intentionally. They seem to grow to dislike me for pointing out their lies. Story 97. Toppers, also known as one-uppers, and name-droppers are individuals who constantly talk about themselves. There are also those who are overly frugal and never seem to have enough money to contribute to the tip. Story 98. Entitled individuals, men with large egos or a god complex, and women who believe they deserve everything because they consider themselves beautiful by their own standards, as well as judgmental individuals. Story 99. People who cannot enjoy fun activities without getting drunk or high often behave like completely different individuals when intoxicated. Story 100. People with big egos who always need to brag about everything they have or have purchased should stay away from me. Story 101. Those who make smoking marijuana their whole personality. Sure, I partake, but I feel like there are better things to do than sit somewhere intoxicated all the time. I don't care if you can smoke more than me. I'm so tired of it now. Story 102. Competitive individuals such as braggarts, self-promoters, and egotistical people treat every interaction as if they are at a high school reunion. To paraphrase Shirley Valentine, if you have a headache, they have a brain tumor. These individuals are highly insecure and require validation from those around them by competing over every aspect of their lives. They derive their self-worth solely from others' opinions or how they perceive themselves in comparison to their peers. When they cannot outperform you in any area, they become jealous and spiteful, downplaying your achievements to your friends and often to your face if they have the courage. If you accomplish something, they will attribute it to luck, their assistance, or alleged cheating. These individuals will alter the outcomes of every situation to present themselves in the best possible light. If they lose or fail, they will claim it is due to external factors or insist it wasn't their fault. They will reinterpret their failures as successes, often completely changing the narrative of what actually occurred. This can be amusing to witness if you observe the initial failure firsthand. When pointed out, they will label you the liar and may come to believe their own fabrications as truth. On the other hand, competitive individuals are easy to manipulate. Their vulnerabilities are so apparent. They are highlighted like a neon sign. Story 103, plenty, but I'm definitely going with police officers for sure. I really dislike the condescending tone that comes with the profession. Story 104, treatment, touch, safe, truck, edge, boast, deliver, unite, bells, obtainable. Story 105, people who believe they are never at fault in their own minds are often seen as professional victims. I also have zero tolerance for thin-skinned individuals who are easily offended. Story 106, I seem to attract individuals who frequently offer unsolicited advice. Recently, having my first baby has intensified this issue with a few people. I have stopped listening to their voice notes. Any tips for curbing this behavior swiftly would be appreciated. Story 107. People who aspire to be socialites often admire those who are naturally extroverted. Socialites, who are comfortable in their extroversion, generally exhibit a cool demeanor. Story 108. Friends who criticize the things you enjoy or are passionate about can be frustrating. I'm not talking about playful teasing. I mean genuinely disrespectful behavior. Nobody cares about what car you drive. I'm also at my wit's end with those who ignore me for no reason but respond whenever they need something or want to showcase their accomplishments. Story 109. Bro and girl code individuals are those who involve you in their lies. They often confess to cheating on their spouses. I won't lie for someone when I would dislike being in the spouse's position. Story 110. People who treat you as an option are the worst kinds of people. Do not remain friends with them for long. Story 111. My education as a child involved homeschooling until I was 10 years old, followed by Montessori education until I entered university. Academically, I was ahead of schedule, but my social skills were lacking, much like my confidence. As a member of Generation X, I have had time to cultivate my confidence and remedy that issue. Now, I consider myself the quintessential ambivert. I am laid back, and the work I do often keeps me in a windowless studio. I don't drink much, but that doesn't prevent me from meeting people. Being more laid back, I don't require much from my friends. I have one non-negotiable condition I seek from a friend, as well as one non-negotiable condition I require from a partner. For friends, I need to be able to learn from them. If the relationship starts to plateau, it indicates that growth has stopped, which is no longer beneficial for either of us. Aside from that, I am completely flexible. For a romantic partner, my sole requirement is that they either have a degree or a fitness membership. Choose your struggle. Aside from that, I am flexible. Story 112. I avoided people who were overly passionate about something. I understand being enthusiastic, but getting angry when you see someone else doing something you love incorrectly is toxic and uncomfortable. Story 113. People who do not reciprocate interest in conversation can be surprising. It is remarkable how some individuals will talk endlessly about themselves without ever asking you a question. This is a major pet peeve of mine and an instant turnoff for friendship. Story 114. People who constantly talk about others' business raise a significant concern for me. If they share so much about someone else with me, especially when I don't know them well or even care, I can only imagine what they say about my own situation. I prefer to distance myself from people like that. Story 115. holes hypocrites, and those who indulge in prejudicial bias. Violent types, mean types, bullies, and cowards. I could say more, but those are my top concerns. Story 116. People who don't respect my boundaries and treat me like a punching bag are the fastest way to lose me in a group. I would rather be alone. Story 117. People who like to talk but are not good at listening frustrate me. My pet peeve is repeating myself, especially when I feel the person I am talking to is too eager to share their thoughts, sometimes merely to echo what I just said. Story 118. I don't want anyone who can't adapt to situations beyond our control, like being stuck in traffic. It's frustrating, but if that's the only route, we can't do anything about it. Story 119. A coworker who spends more time trying to be friends than working hard. If you want to hang out with the crew off the clock, you need to put in more effort while on the clock. Story 120. People who feel jealous of what others have are often insecure individuals. They tend to put on a fake persona as if they have something to prove rather than being themselves. Story 121. People who are rude to waiters and those who flaunt their faith are frustrating. Yes, John, I am glad God answered your prayers about your promotion, but a cure for cancer would be even better. Story 122. Lazy and self-pitying individuals exist at every age. Many people around me claim to be working long hours or not sleeping until morning, only to wake up in the evening and think that life is unfair. Story 123. Fake, materialistic, pretentious individuals. Individuals who judge you by your profession and those who constantly emphasize how busy they are. Story 124. People who cannot stick to plans and cancel at the last minute can be quite frustrating. If there is a legitimate emergency, such as hospitalization for themselves or a family member, or an urgent work matter, I can understand. However, I have been canceled on simply because the other person was sleepy, even when I was already at our meeting point. They couldn't even provide a proper response when I expressed my disappointment, and I decided to end the relationship after that. If you cannot make it or feel uncertain about making it, at least inform the other person a day in advance. Story 125. People with whom there is no exchange, no shared humor, or responsiveness lack rapport. It is also a deal breaker if they cannot arrive somewhere on time. This is a strong sign of not being at peace with themselves. Additionally, there are individuals who ask for money for drinks but always seem to keep the change. Story 126. People who believe they are always right are difficult to have a conversation with. They often express their opinions as if they are the only correct perspective. If your thoughts differ from theirs, they perceive you as wrong. Story 127. People who wouldn't listen. I love listening to people, their stories, and worries. However, I dislike it when that same person doesn't listen to me and keeps interrupting me while I talk. Story 128. Unpopular opinion. Some individuals who are obese due to their own choices and do not wish to change or take responsibility are concerning. While this may be controversial, I struggle with the victim mindset, lack of accountability, and the inability to engage in physical activities without becoming out of breath. Additionally, there seems to be a general disregard for personal health, appearance, and well-being. Story 129. People who look down on others often forget where they came from. I work in sales and used to hang out with individuals who transitioned out of the field. They look down on salespeople, which doesn't make sense. Story 130. Big city social liberals often immerse themselves in technology and new trends, spending money on events and materials. Those who occasionally seek nature have contributed to the glamping trend, which has, unfortunately, negatively impacted many outdoor spots. Story 131. People become different individuals while intoxicated. They may be nice to your face but are often willing to gossip about others, as they likely do the same about you when you're not present. Similarly, I will never confide in someone who has shared another person's secret, as they are likely to divulge yours as well. Story 132. People who are frugal count every penny, while my friends and I treat each other without expecting repayment. Unreliable individuals often promise to be there but frequently cancel for various reasons. Story 133. Those you confide in and later bring it up to put you down have done this twice, which is unacceptable. Story 134. Narcissists, egomaniacs, and highly competitive individuals are often attractive to me, especially in the opposite sex. The dynamic tends to spoil the fantasy of attractiveness when faults are revealed. I would prefer to maintain the illusion of perfection that attraction creates. It is better to remain unaware than to uncover the truth in that regard. Story 135. Don't hate me for it. I have a girlfriend, and she agrees with me on this. Women often rarely speak their minds and tend to settle for comfortable conversations or situations rather than engaging in rational discussions that include diverse opinions. Any man who is a hypocrite or behaves like the woman I described above is also untrustworthy. People who lack logic cannot be trusted. If I have friends, it is to have people I can trust who are not myself, so they can also have someone to rely on aside from themselves. It is not that I refuse to have these types of people as friends that leads me to exclude them from my life. I simply do not consider them friends. Story 136. Popular individuals often present a superficial version of themselves in an effort to appeal to everyone, which may prevent them from being authentic. These individuals tend to lack deep and genuine relationships. Story 137. People who need to be the coolest person in the room often do so by belittling or criticizing others. Story 138. Overly aggressive individuals with inflated egos. Quitters and victims. I have recently encountered the latter group, and to be honest, they are my least favorite of the three. The excuses and self-destructive behavior are exhausting. Story 139. Those who constantly try to make jokes but are never funny, and they just keep doing it. Individuals who do not play video games. People who engage in superficial relationships. Story 140. The ones that make you feel small in front of others. I had a friend who would bring up embarrassing things from my past to make himself look better whenever we were talking to people we just met. This is a major sign of insecurity and not the kind of person you want in your life. Story 141. Judgmental and invasive individuals. People pleasers and popular individuals not out of jealousy, but because you will be surrounded by their other friends every time. Story 142. The comedian Patton Oswalt wrote a book called Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, where he describes meeting a person who is openly a huge scumbag, misogynistic and irresponsible. He neglects everything, including his own club, and has poor hygiene. At the end of the chapter, when Patton gets fully ripped off, he realizes that the lost income is actually money well spent for the service of having this man talk negatively about him. It would actually be worse for him if the gig went well and this terrible person were running around saying how much he loves Patton. It is somehow better for his reputation and personal closure that the man hates him, because the kind of person Patton wants to be around would never want anything to do with this individual. Story 143. Conceited materialists believe they are superior to others due to their job title and income, similar to the snobs in the cigar community. Story 144. Clingy friends who only want to listen to you and never offer advice. Individuals who are always playing the victim and those who cannot laugh at themselves. Story 145. People who filter their words and are not spontaneous interest me. I prefer those who speak what is in their hearts. Story 146. If one-uppers means the same to you as it does to me, then that's fine. I don't like people who require me to be someone I'm not, to behave in a way I would not otherwise, or to believe in or support things I would not otherwise support. I appreciate friends who encourage me positively, who ask me to call them more often if they feel left out, or who motivate me to come and have fun. They accept me as I am, and that is cool. Story 147. Traditionalists, highly emotional people, and control-oriented individuals are my mortal enemies, and they need to stay far away from me. Story 148. People with poor time management skills and those who center their personality around their political beliefs can be challenging to engage with. It can be quite dull to converse with someone who appears to merely repeat the viewpoints of any news outlet. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.